Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome to our Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our producer, Jeff Durall. We're in the Hayes Post Office at the corner of Fort Street in Hayes, visiting with Hayes Postmaster Tom Lippert as we talk about perhaps retirement in the future for Tom, maybe even a career change. Who knows? We'll find out today on Community Connection. Tom, where did it all begin?
Well, I began my career in the same workroom floor area of the Hayes Post Office back in February of 1979. And I've spent most of my career associated with the Hayes Post Office. I spent 2 years in Colby, Kansas as a superintendent of postal operations. That was from 82 to 84, and came back here with that same title. Superintendent of postal operations was similar to a assistant postmaster at the time, and became postmaster here when Doug Ennis retired, the previous postmaster. He was a great mentor, and still living in the Hayes area. He retired in 1990, and I took over shortly just right after that.
Where did you begin? Back here in the back of the post office, away from the front desk that most of us see.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I was a student at Fort Hayes, as I am now. But I was a student going to Fort Hayes and took the test and was fortunate enough to get hired shortly after I took the postal exam, and worked evenings sorting mail and going around the city making collection and working nights. You know, I worked afternoons and nights, and they helped work around my college schedule, which was nice, which they did for other employees as well.
Many of those same jobs are still being done by postal employees, aren't they, Tom?
Oh yes, we still have people making the collections and sorting the mail to our 676 offices. The one thing that I used to do that is no longer done here, last year, October, they moved, September, part of our operations to Slender outgoing distribution. But that's what I first started with. So it was, but overall I've been here since back of March of 1984, except for the details and times when I worked different levels, different capacities on assignments outside of our office. I worked 6 months as a manager in charge of Western Third of the state of Kansas. Worked up at our district office into Omaha numerous times, and held different positions in Topeka and Wichita.
Well, with all of those options open to that young college student back in the day, Tom, how did the Postal Service strike your interest?
Well, it was, I didn't think it was going to be a career, other than I was getting my degree in public relations or mass communications, and I intended to try to go into that field, which is, postmaster does use some of those talents that you learn and knowledge. But I thought maybe move up with the Postal Service or find something outside. But I enjoyed the job I did, enjoyed the place where I worked, enjoyed the people I've worked with, and I've done that for all these many years. And raising a family, you kind of look at, well, maybe this is a pretty good deal where you're fortunate enough to have some benefits and some stability.
And you've also got a great community to work from, too, I think, Tom.
Without a doubt. Mike, over the years, I try to talk about just briefly a minute ago, is I've served in a lot of different capacities, and part of that was the intent of me to move up within the Postal Service. And I'm so glad and thankful I resisted that temptation to move up, which you need people to do, to step into different capacities and grow and learn and take charge. But it was very difficult for me to think about moving because my family was here, didn't really want to move. And I learned that the community of Hayes is fantastic. I loved being here. I loved the people I worked with. And those were the reasons that I stayed here. And I've never regretted that. That was something that I tried to share with the employees, that years and years ago when I had all kinds of opportunities to move, but part of the reason I really stayed was because of the people I worked with and the community that Hayes is.
And a lot of community involvement too, Tom.
Yeah, well, it was one of the best decisions I made to stay here. And I feel if you're going to be anywhere, we all have responsibilities to try to make where you live and what you do a better place. And I've been involved with the Hayes community in many ways, and I still plan on staying here and being involved as much as I can.
Talk about the Postal Service, Tom, as an American institution. I mean, we can't remember a time when there wasn't a post office, when we didn't associate and visit with our mail carriers, whether it's on a rural route or whether it's locally in towns. But the Postal Service is an American tradition, of course, going clear back to Ben Franklin, for heaven's sakes.
And that was it's always been a big part of our society, and we appreciate that responsibility that we have, and we try to always live up to that. But the Postal Service is, as you know, is growing for 200 some years in size and volume and revenue and growth. But we also expanded our places we deliver to. You think back to our community, Hayes, as well as many other communities, you see all the growth and expansion. Well, we add over 1 million new deliveries every year that we deliver to. It's the size of Chicago. We keep adding to, which costs money to deliver to those areas. But what happened about 2006, well, maybe 2001, around the anthrax concerns, in 2002, we had a dip in volume, and then it rebounded. We continued to grow. In about 2006 or so, the recession started happening. The electronic media has caught up with us, where people found all their alternatives through some of these things, and we started seeing a decline in our first-class mail volume, and that's continued to drastically decline. So with the reduction of first-class mail volumes and our revenues, and with our expenses keep expanding the places we deliver, it didn't take long to really have a huge impact, negative impact on the Postal Service. So even though we're a very valued and trusted institution, I think we're voted and have been for many, many years the most well-liked, well-respected of all the government agencies, that we're going through a tough transitional time.
There have been responses, though, with the post office and the great flat mail boxes, the flat rate boxes that they've introduced, the cards that are now available, so many of the services that are now available through local post office. So there has been a response to declining volume, if you will.
Yes, and we try to meet customers' needs and demands, and the Postal Service does try to adjust in ways that we can. It's just that we sometimes, being a government agency or a quasi-government, where we don't get any tax dollars, and we funded only by the dollars and revenues that we collect from our customers, that you're a government agency, but yet you're not. So it's like they always refer to us as a quasi. But still, we need to be responsive to our customers. We are the Postal Service, and something I try to convey with the employees as I leave the Postal Service, that will never change. What we do with the mail when it's in our hand, and the service we provide to our customers face to face, is still very valuable, and always value that and try to make the most of it. That has never changed all these years.
And I think, Tom, it bears repeating that the post office is self-sustaining. It does not receive tax dollars, and yet at the same time, you're able to take a piece of mail or a package in Hayes, Kansas, or in the rural part of western Kansas, and send it anywhere for a very reasonable price, whether it's a letter, a note, a package. It's amazing the service that's still available.
Yes, and you talk about customer service briefly, and that's, to me, another side of customer service. Just not being able to, the way we handle and how we treat and deal with customers and what we do with the mail, but trying to keep the costs down. Something that we've locally have always strived for, is try to run as efficient and tight as operation as we could, and we trust that that's being done nationwide, because what type of customer service are we providing if we have to raise stamps up to 90 cents to $1? So I think we've always been very proud of trying to cut back efficiencies and make the Postal Service as efficient as we can.
I like that mission statement, which I had to read on the back wall here, that's in a big banner on the back wall, that says every customer will always be provided with quality service in a timely manner by valued employees using safe and cost-effective processes.
Yes.
And that pretty well sums it up, I think,
Yes,
Tom.
it does. It's something that I've put back there and valued all these years, and I feel that's part of my overall responsibilities. You know, from the customer service to the safe operations, and all those things are all. It's just an integral part, and all one
Address this point, if you would, Tom. Some say that the Postal Service didn't change with the times. You've kind of addressed this to an extent, that you didn't change with the new technologies and with everything going on. Fair assessment or off the mark?
Yes and no, because we have made adjustments, and we had automation even in our office from 96 through till last year. We had machines to help sort and process our mail, and we've tried to adjust. It's just been very difficult because we are still a government agency and we still are handcuffed. We aren't able to be as responsive to needs to change as we would like. Yet the Postal Service has still remained the same, and some of that is still important to our customers. As I go out and speak throughout the community to the Kiwanis or the Optimists or Rotary or whoever I go out and speak to, and I talk about the changes and the pending situation of the Postal Service, and I say, well, we can consolidate, but what that would mean is reduction of service standards. And people say, we can't have that. We need our mail delivered next day, or mail's still important, or their post offices are still important. The Postal Service has said maybe we need to cut back a lot of our post offices, but people still in those communities, it's very important to them, just as their mail is for them still. So at some point in time, things will change, but maybe not as fast as what the Postal Service thinks they need to. People, mail is still important to customers.
And that 2006 law that required the post office to pre-fund retirement that Congress passed really put a burden on the post office that no other entity had to deal with. For pre-funding pensions and retirement plans and such, which causes some of the losses the Postal Service has been experiencing.
The financial strain is huge on the Postal Service, and it ties back into the Payee Act of 2006, which at the time the Postal Service was saying, we need this act to be more responsive to the changes, to be quicker changes than having a rate case every 4 years to change rates. So we said, let's change rates with the rate of inflation. And a lot of other things, but one of those portions of that act is the White House said we will only sign this bill into legislation become a bill that we approve is if the Postal Service pre-funds our retirees' health benefits for the next 75 years in the future. So this would mean that the $5.6 billion requirement that we started paying back then in 2006 is to pre-fund retirees' health benefit plans for the next 75 years. So until we paid like $40 billion, we were the only government agency. There's no private industry, business, nobody in the country or the world that does that except the Postal Service. The Postal Service, though, was so eager for these law and legislation to pass, we said, fine, we'll do this. But we tried to appeal to Congress, and we need congressional action to say, wait a second, maybe you don't need to do this at this time, because I think that August 1st was our deadline for the last year's that was deferred. And come September 30th, you're going to hear that another $5.8 billion is supposed to be paid. And that portion is dealing just with retirees' health benefits for the next 75 years for people we haven't even hired yet, or maybe even been born. The other thing that it's a little confusing to people, but there's another faction side of this that we have overpaid the retirees' retirement funds over the years, and there's anywhere from the Postal Regulatory Commission and our Inspector General have identified between a total of $50 to $75 billion that we will probably never ever get back. That's overpaid into the government. And who paid that? That was the ratepayers, our customers, have overpaid that into the government. So in some ways it's helped defer balance the budgets.
Well, following the post office work, Tom Lippert, I guess, is going to become a college student again.
Yes. Well, I am looking for starting a second career, and if something comes along, I may take, and I don't know which area I want to head. There's a lot of areas that interest me. I've been going back to school the last 2 years, taking some undergraduate leveling prerequisite courses for my MBA. And ideally, I'd like to find something where I could work and continue working toward my master's. What I started this about 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, and something came up where I'm now eligible to retire, and it made me start thinking, if I'm really serious about beginning a second career, maybe I should try to leap now. I still got the energy, drive, and desire to tackle such an adventure versus being 10 years down the road.
Any couple of things that might be in the back of your mind that you might like to venture to?
The part of the problem is there's so many things I'd love to try to do, and I say, that sounds interesting. Or someone says, but tell me what they do, and that sounds interesting. There's a lot of things that are enticing to me. But right now I'm kind of keeping my options open and exploring different things. And one of if I don't find something that comes along or something that I find of interest right now, I'll enroll full-time to work on my master's.
It was a lot of years ago, I think, when Tom Lippert and I found out that we actually had a mutual connection, if you will, through Brother Lance, whom we went to school with. And then I was able to lure to Hayes for a while before he took off for the big time.
Yes.
But Lance Lippert, of course, brother, doing well?
Yes, he's doing great. He completed his doctor degree, and he teaches. He's an instructor, associate professor of communications at Illinois State. Has been there for 12 years, Illinois State in Normal, Illinois.
What about the family?
Well, our children are growing, and we have 2 still in college of the 7 children that my wife and we had. And right now, all of them live in Hayes except a son who's married and living in Arizona, and we have a son living right now in Colorado Springs, working out there. So it's another reason why I'd love to plan on staying in our community with my wife's job and with our family. And I want to stay a vital part of our community. I love Hayes.
Some close enough to travel, and yet some it'll take a little bit more of an effort.
Yes, but it's still home, and we're proud to be part of the Hayes community.
Tom, what do you see ahead for the Postal Service?
I believe that there will be a Postal Service and a Hayes Post Office for many, many years. I want to say decades, but maybe even for another 100 years. It's going to change. There's going to be the plans are consolidating our processing operations in January of 2013. But they're still going to need to have us deliver the mail. There's packages. There's the mail. First class mail has declined, but we're still a lot of other kinds of mail, and no one else does what we do. Every door, most every day. And I think that at some point in time, the number of days of delivery will change. And our mode of delivery may change over time. But in the near future, some of that stuff's still going to stay. There's still need for retail presence, and we're glad to be part of downtown, and I think we'll still be a part of downtown. But down the road, I think you're going to see some more and more consolidations, and maybe even some of the smaller post offices will be closing over time. As far as the 6-day delivery, I think that we may be eliminating Saturday delivery. Some point at time, there'll be a need to get rid of it. Most people, when I go out and visit with them, and say, well, we could do away with one less day of delivery. But there's still a lot of people who rely on drugs through the mail, prescriptions that's sent to them. There's a lot of other important things that people still get. Right now, the people who are mainly pushing for Saturday delivery are still the mailers. They want people to get that targeted on a certain day of the week, or prescriptions and trying to paychecks. There's a lot of things that people still want 6 days. I think at some point in time, though, it'll change, and I think at some point in time they'll have even more consolidations. But there'll still be a need for a post office.
So as far as I know, I'll still be able to say hi to my mailman Dan then.
Yes, however long he's working.
Absolutely. And of course, none of us, as we said, can imagine a time without the Postal Service.
Yes.
Tom Lippert, Hayes Postmaster. Our guest today from the Hayes Post Office, actually in the sorting area of the Hayes Post Office. Thanks to producer Jeff Durall, and thanks to you for joining us on Community Connection from Eagle Community Television.